And we last year just paid off our mortgage. Maybe a week and a half before everything shut down for the pandemic. Had our little sort of, mortgage burning party. We burned something in the wood stove. I don't actually know if it was some kind of formal paper or not, but okay. We burned it in the wood stove just because the kids are like, oh, we own the house now. We got to do something.
Burn it down.
Burn it down. Jesus. We've almost done that too, but that's another story. Two lifelong friends document and share their personal stories as they seek financial independence and to retire early. One reaches FIRE in 2020 during a global pandemic, inspiring the other to play catch up. This is Two Sides of FIRE. I was going to ask you about your Tesla. That's not.
It's almost like I knew this was coming.
Come on, man. Big financial mistake.
No.
You bought the giant depreciable asset. And now here you're going to justify its purchase, just like justifying the drone purchase.
So what Eric is referring to, thank you for
What'd you buy?
Completely meeting my expectations. 6 years ago, I bought a Tesla Model S, which at the time was the only car they sold. Yeah. Great car, the sedan, phenomenal car. I felt it was a reasonable decision, and obviously it was a family decision. I didn't just go buy it and then I was done with it.
Show up with it.
But, I spent a lifetime of driving sensible, almost entirely used cars. Right?
Saturn. I remember you were driving a Saturn.
Dude, I drove that Saturn for 10 years, and I put no money into it other than like a couple of small repairs. That car was so good from a financial decision perspective.
It's crazy.
The fanciest car I had bought before that was a Prius, right? I never had a fancy car.
You had a
anyway,
Prius?
I did have a Prius.
Oh my God, that's dreadful.
Well, I actually traded it in towards the Tesla.
That says a lot about who you are at that time. I don't think we were friends at that time.
Look, it's a financially and environmentally smart decision. Anyway, I'll get to the mistake because the Tesla was a fine purchase. Like I feel any luxury car purchase should be. I was able to pay for it right out. I wasn't going to have some 7-year loan or ridiculous thing that I see some people do. And it scares me a lot when I see people taking out these long-term car loans. They're just abusive terms. But anyway, the mistake I made was hesitancy. And that resulted in some downstream, financial impact. So I didn't just get the Tesla.
Does that mean?
I'll explain. I didn't just get the Tesla out of the gate. I knew I wanted a battery electric vehicle. At that time, there were very few options. And the Nissan Leaf was a good option. It was one of the only options for a while.
Right. You had one of those.
I leased it. I leased it. They were very favorable lease terms. So I got the Leaf. And it had a lot of advantages to me. I could drive in the HOV lane. I could avoid a lot of the bad traffic in the Bay Area.
You're setting this up as the financial mistake that wasn't actually a financial mistake.
No, it's a mistake. It's a mistake. It's not the simplest story, right? It's not crisp. But so I got the Leaf. And then like 6 months later.
That's a dumb car, by the way.
Yeah, it's a dumb car. 6 months later, I got the Tesla anyway.
So you completely did the worst thing for the environment possible, man.
It gets worse. It gets worse.
Is it the worst thing about the most unenvironmental aspect of those cars?
If you're going to quote from the Koch brothers research, I'm going to shut this off about the battery.
The battery.
No, I don't want to go there. I've seen
you know
and
how
read
many
it
kids
all.
die every minute
Stop
from
it.
mining lithium?
You have conflict minerals all over your house. Let's move on. So
I'm burning nothing but fossil fuels out here.
We still have the lease on the Leaf, and I get the Tesla. Lori has a completely paid off Honda Fit that's probably going to go another 10 years, right? So what do? We sell the Fit. She takes the Leaf. And she hates the Leaf.
Yeah.
So as soon as the lease is up, she gets another car.
Wait, was the Fit the Honda Fit the car that looks like it's wearing like a diaper? It's got a little dump in the back. It's got like little. Yeah, it's got the little covers on the back wheels, doesn't it?
No,
I always thought it looked like a diaper.
No, that's a different car. It's not that.
Insight.
Anyway,
it's the Insight.
We got rid of her perfectly good Fit that was paid off, so that I could get the Tesla, and she got the Leaf, which is a car she hated.
So you all lost.
No, I won because I got the Tesla, but she lost, and it was my fault. So of course, as soon as the Leaf lease is up, now she needs another car. And we wouldn't have had to get another car if we had still had the Fit, because she really liked the Fit.
Please tell me you didn't buy a Fit.
No, we bought another Tesla. She got a Model 3.
More batteries.
But 6 years later, I traded in the Tesla for another brand new car. So, and this car is going to go at least 10 years, right? It's another Toyota hybrid, right? It's going to last forever. So I got a RAV4. So,
the only thing this has proven is that you have bad taste in cars.
Well, I have practical taste in cars, except for the Tesla, which is not practical at all, but it is super fun.
Your first car was the best.
There were dumb mistakes in there, and they're my fault. I don't think that buying a Tesla was a mistake in any way, shape, or form. I could afford it. It made sense. I had been a good saver. I had been a good investor. And I was in the very fortunate position to be able to do it. But I made a series of downstream dumb decisions as a result of taking that one decision to buy the Tesla. So it was a mistake. And I almost didn't want to talk about this with Lori earlier today, but we talked through the progression of it. And I know how much she liked that Fit, and she was still willing to give it up to get the Tesla.
All
so
for you,
she's a much better person than me, as I tell her all the time. Anyway, did you make any dumb auto buying mistakes, or
I make them all the
history
time, man.
Clean?
No, I make them all the time, but
now you get to write them off.
Well, I was going to say the last new car that I bought was last year, the Jeep, which is sitting right out here, and I bought that for a very particular business reason, and the mistake I made with that is, like, you really have to do your research on bonus depreciation, for example. So if you look around, I don't know if you know anything about bonus depreciation, do you?
About that much.
Okay. I'm not giving tax advice here or legal advice.
Right. We are not financial
Please
advisors.
do your own research.
Tax professionals.
But there is a part of the tax code when you're thinking about writing off a vehicle for business use. It's related to the weight of the vehicle. So any vehicle over 6,500 pounds gross weight, that is, like, you can't just go and put like 4,000 pounds of sand in the back of your pickup truck. Because I considered that, like, well, how could I mod this? But once you get above that weight, then you're subject, you can write off more of the value of the vehicle. So it's in part the reason why you see many contractors driving $55,000 trucks.
Yes.
I
have noticed this.
Yes. When they're just driving like down like a paved sidewalk, basically, to get to the job site. Anyway. So the mistake that I made with this was it doesn't qualify for bonus depreciation. So I bought a pretty expensive vehicle because I like it. It's fun to drive. It's great. All that good stuff, but it just barely doesn't qualify for the bonus depreciation.
Oh, no.
So
see, I assumed it did. I didn't know it was that light.
Well, see, I could have spent a little bit more and then gotten all of the bonus depreciation. But of course, I'm still learning.
Yeah, for sure. Right. There's a lesson right there. Right. You're never going to stop learning.
You never stop learning. I mentioned we were living off of Laura's student loans.
Yeah.
For a couple of years at least. So we got into, she's been working for nonprofits her entire life. So there was this program, this loan forgiveness program that Obama started in 2010. I don't know if you knew about this, but we were pretty into it because all she had was, federal loans, and all she was doing was working for a nonprofit, and it was a qualified nonprofits the whole way. And so it's a 7-year, you have to make 7 years of consecutive payments. And so we're like, and then once you get to the end of that 7 years, the loan is forgiven. You apply for forgiveness and it's forgiven. And so we just paid the minimum payment for 7 years straight. And we got to that end point and we applied to the program for forgiveness. And they said, yeah, well, when you consolidated your loans back in 2010, day one, basically, you used a program that didn't qualify under this program that loan forgiveness was set up in.
Are you kidding me?
Well, I'm not kidding you. And we are not the only one.
This
is a huge thing. It's very common for people to have gone through this entire 7-year repayment period. And so they said, good news is you can start the repayment, any payment you make from here forward, if you move your loans to this program, it will all be qualified. So you just have another 7 years of payments. Like,
oh no.
Perfect. So we ended up just paying it all off in one lump sum, which brings me to the idea, you have a mortgage right now, right?
I do.
Yeah. And we last year just paid off our mortgage. And that's one of those, is it a mistake that we've done that? And not taking the money? And because you've made a very conscious decision, and it's under advisement from your financial advisors too, I presume, to leverage having some debt.
Yep.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. I mean, the way we thought about it was interest rates are so incredibly low. And in fact, we refinanced already after 9 months because we could drop it even more.
So the closing costs made it?
They were so low.
Wow.
They were so low. It was outrageous. It was $2,000 out of pocket to close this second loan. And, we dropped our interest rate from 3.5 to 2.625. So in aggregate, that's a healthy savings over the life of a 30-year loan. So
that's why you took a 30-year?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, they're big proponents of take the 30-year loan. If you are in the situation where you want to pay it off sooner and pay off more, that's great, especially in your 40s. That to your question, right? Emotionally, it may feel so important to you to pay off that loan.
Yep.
Why not, right? I'm not choosing to do that. I'm not paying extra right now. That may change, right? We start bringing in more income. Sure, maybe I will put it towards principal, but right now, I look at this as it's something just fine. It's something that I had planned for.
Yeah.
It was always a part of the model. You may recall we talked about like the idea of our mortgage plus our out-of-pocket health cost premiums needed to be less than our rent was in the Bay Area.
Right.
And we have succeeded in that. So no, I don't really worry about it. Yes, emotionally, the idea of owning the house outright is attractive, but that would have been obviously a ridiculous decision to take with our assets to just buy a house.
Yeah. So we had been paying for a number of years, and the payoff balance was definitely within reach. We had gone from a 30 to a 15, and and it just month on month, we're like, does it make sense if we have this amount in the bank to really just keep carrying that? And we did it in February of 2020. So maybe a week and a half before everything shut down for the pandemic.
Yeah.
And, we sort of wrote it off, had our little sort of, mortgage burning party. We burned something in the wood stove. I don't actually know if it was some kind of formal paper or not, but we burned it in the wood stove just because the kids are like, oh, we own the house now. We got to do something.
Burn it down.
Burn it down. Jesus. We've almost done that too, but that's another story. Having that burden off of us, and I knew the trade-offs, and I know being connected to the fire movement, the kind of shade that people throw on others for making that decision.
They do.
It felt good to me. I can't tell you the kind of headspace that it freed up for me. And I mean, it's interesting because it allows me just to be more aggressive with a lot of other things. And so that allowed a much more aggressive savings plan than I probably otherwise would have done. And so I think that's something that's not talked about that often, but I do.
Yeah.
It's worth mentioning, I think. And, a similar thing with the business. I had that kind of revelation last year where I was just always carrying this runway.
Yeah. I'm interested in this idea because you've mentioned it before. How did your runway get so long on savings with the business? Like 7 years, I think you said. Was that just a extreme conservatism solely because you were so sure you didn't want to work for anybody else ever again? Or did it just kind of get out of mind, not thought about anymore? Like how active a decision was it to keep that much headroom?
I mean, it wasn't 7 years worth of expenses. I'll just say that it was.
No. I meant you were building this runway over 7 years. It sounded like you had said.
Yeah,
maybe I misunderstood.
I always just kept, I wasn't clear about it. I always just kept a cash cushion in the business, and it just kept growing as I started earning more. And it just felt like, it's like having the mortgage, so just like it's there. I guess for me, when I first started out on my own, I didn't feel like I had a good handle on paying quarterly taxes. And when you have to project out over a year and you're a business that does client work, services work, the income stream can be really unpredictable. Like when I was first working with clients, some clients would take 2 months to pay, or I would wait a month to bill somebody and then they'd wait 2 months to pay. And that's right. That's you need a big cushion to operate a business like that. So some of it was due to my, I guess, inexperience and maybe my unwillingness to really step further out on the ledge than I think felt like I already was. But it just doesn't, I think, through the refocusing that you kind of helped me do on personal finance and thinking about every little aspect of my financial life, that was one of the most glaring errors. And it also comes with confidence that, like, if you are pretty sure you're going to make income the next month, and I don't know that comes right away, year 3, I think you could have talked to me and I would have thought, yeah, it's working, but it could work better. And if it stops working, I don't really want to have to go to option, plan B. When in reality, all of this is about just jumping out of the plane without a parachute and building the set of wings on the way down. It's just what you do. And it's very comfortable for me now. And so maybe that's the other reason why I just looked at that sum of money and I was like, this could be better used elsewhere. So, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and I think what I was thinking as you were saying that was the difference between mistakes and missed opportunities, right? I mean, you could easily, I can sit here and justify the purchase of the Tesla. Right. I can say, look, if you're not living, what are you doing? And I wanted that car for a lot of reasons, and I had never bought a vehicle like that.
That's a good point.
And so it's a part of living. It's a decision, right? Could my portfolio be a lot bigger if I'd had that cash infusion in it 6 years ago? Of course. And over the long term, that's a lot of money. But at what point do you stop saying that about every single thing? Right? Yeah. You need to have some living. You need to make the memories. You need to enjoy life. You just need to make sensible decisions that are thoughtful, right? I mean, I think of you as a thoughtful person. I'm sure that you have those conversations with Laura about financial decisions, maybe more often now than you did earlier on when you didn't think about that stuff so actively. But
it just reminds me of that.
Gotta live.
It's so funny because it's almost word for word what Laura has said to me when I've zeroed in on some infinitesimal aspect of our spending for the month.
You too, huh?
So when she used to go into the lab, they have this kind of little Roscoe's. I mean, you used to work at the lab, so Roscoe's. Yeah. It's just a place to go and get lunch or coffee or whatever. Yes. And so I would be going through kind of bank statements, and I did it infrequently, but I'd look through it and I'd be like, what is this? How are you spending $5.85 a day at Roscoe? Like what? I mean, what do we have that's there that's not in our house? Like, right. And she's just like, leave me alone.
Yeah,
I'm a working professional. If I want a cup of coffee in the morning and in the afternoon and a bologna sandwich or whatever I want, I can get it. So bugger off is what she said. And I was like, oh, she's right. She is totally right. But when we were talking about this, we were talking about something the other day. She's like, I feel like I tend to spend on the small things and you tend to spend on the real big things, and,
oh my gosh,
and like
we're the same.
Points at the Jeep or, I got a new camera. I got a new 360 camera, which I love, and I was like, oh yeah. How about that gravel bike out there? It's just like, she just conveniently forgets those things.
Well, Arwen was giving me crap about buying the drone. And I said, look, here's the difference between me and your mother. Like your mother's ongoing spending looks like this. My ongoing spending looks like this.
It's the same.
And it's true. It's completely true. Because she has a certain amount of I feel like she has a mental budget of shoes and handbags that she needs to be purchasing on a regular basis. And neither are expensive, right? She's not a person with lavish taste, but she needs to keep acquiring handbags and shoes. Dude. And I do not. But every so often I want a drone. So my ongoing spending is very low.
Yeah.
From a budgetary perspective, it's way better to have someone with a low level of predictable spending than to have somebody who infrequently just goes off the rails.
It's so true.
So you're in a good spot, because there are people watching this who have people in their lives who just go freaking wild card every so often and blow a ton of money. And that's not the case in either of our houses. So I think we do okay. A lot of mistakes are eye of the beholder kind of things, right? There are people who would say having a financial advisor it's a drag on your portfolio and it's always a bad decision. It's a mistake. There are people who will say,
not you.
Carrying a mortgage into retirement is a mistake, right? Having any debt. Other people, like to your point, will say paying off your mortgage early when you could be investing that money is a mistake.
Right.
At the end of the day, there is an intersection of mathematics and emotions. And as long as you have done the math and seen the implications of taking decisions, you've done the right thing, right? And it's a very comfortable place to be in, right? We wouldn't say that in our 20s. But sitting here in your 40s running a successful business, you are able to say, I am going to choose to take this money and I'm not going to dollar cost average this lump sum across my portfolio. I'm going to pay off the mortgage because I have X thousand dollars left. And for me, that's a sensible decision because I know it's not going to derail my FI goals.
Yeah, it's not going to hurt.
You know, you're in a better place, a more privileged place to be able to say that, just like I am, to say, well, based on my portfolio size and my expected life, my lifetime, okay, carrying this mortgage, this is not a risk.
Yeah. I'm always selecting for optionality. And I think this is probably going to be a theme in what we talk about. Optionality in where you live, in what you choose to do each day. That's probably the pure definition of what FI is to me and probably you. It's like having options.
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
Yeah, that's.
I was going to say nimbleness has always been important to us. It's very much one of the reasons that we didn't buy a house until we did, because we're sort of very comfortable with the fact that we don't know what's next and we want some freedom to be able to do that stuff.
Options,
right? Options are big to us.
Yeah, totally.
I
was going to ask you about your,
That's why you do it.
When you got married for the second time, did you do a prenup?
No, not at all.
Financial mistake number 48.
No, definitely not. I have no concerns about that. But I will say, when we got married the second time, we did not have a spendy wedding.
Yeah.
And, we were lucky to have family who wanted to pay for things in our reception. And we had a nice but not insanely expensive honeymoon. And I actually, something I kind of wanted to say, I mean, it's like I hesitate to give advice on this point, but for people who are listening to this and thinking about saving and maybe financial independence, like a wedding is a one-day thing, and it's a part of one-day thing. Like in my mind, in my opinion, I don't think that's a great place to spend a ton of money. So when I hear about these $25,000, $50,000 weddings, I kind of lose my mind.
Oh yeah, totally.
Because
bad investment.
It's not an investment. It's purely an expense. I mean, you could say like you're gaining very happy memories out of. Of course you are, but are they going to be that much happier than if you have a more modest ceremony and spend maybe more on a trip that you definitely will remember forever, or
it's
whatever.
One of those
I don't
things.
know.
I mean,
it makes me so anxious. I feel like it's just
every generation has this discussion with their, the up and coming generation. I feel like it's just a rite of passage. You're going to be having the same conversation with Arwen that I'm going to be having with my kids when it comes wedding time. I can almost guarantee it. I think it's just, you just don't learn those lessons until, it's one, I was saying to Henning the other day, I was like, what it's like to work for a whole summer, right? And you earn a couple of $1,000, and we're about to spend a couple of $1,000 on tires and rims. Okay. You ready?
Yep.
Ready to work a whole summer, and then you push a button and that's your whole summer.
Yep. It's such an adult decision though. Like seeing that kind of thing like now, because that's reality, right? Like when you have to pay for a roof or like the furnace goes,
it's always
like these huge expenses. It's just like,
and
like,
also the furnace always goes at Christmas.
Of course it does. Like why would it go any other time?
That's when mine went. Yeah. So brutal. It's like 2 days before Christmas.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. Again, you don't want to live anywhere cold anymore. I don't want to live anywhere cold anymore. Problem solved, right?
Well, I own a house in a cold climate, man. As we go into our 50s together here, what do we not see coming? I mean, that's the thing that if I look back at each one of these sort of prior decades, I can point to something that I was really blind to. And how do we move forward and still be educated on this? I mean, we just listen to people older than us, or what? What do we do?
Long-term care is something that gives me a little pause. I've talked to a few people who know a lot more about it than I do, and it seems like there's not really necessarily anything to do now. I mean, the types of policies that may make sense depending upon what costs look like really don't make sense to start getting into until you're in your 50s anyway. Yeah. So there's nothing to do right now except maybe think about, actually do some research on how much those costs vary in different areas that we might want to live eventually. And because that may play into decisions on where we live, right? And that's something to think about later on. It's not necessarily a today in my mid 40s decision, late 40s.
But you feel like you have all the financial systems
I do
working in the right way.
I think so. Yeah. I do. I mean,
you're not worried about inflation or, where you have your assets parked, that it's just going to erode. I mean, like you don't have half your wealth in your liquid net worth in Bitcoin or something like that.
No, I feel like the point of this show is not for me to defend my decisions to work with financial planners for the last 6 or 7 years. But I bring it up because I have a comfort level that I know I likely would not have had if I went it the whole way alone, because I either wasn't able to or wasn't
but you're talking
taking the time to.
I mean, I don't know if they're listening to this, but you're talking about firing them. So into your 50s, you're going to be on your own.
It's more a question of when does it make sense to go on your own, right? Many people would have said, yesterday, especially in the fire community, where it's really not looked upon favorably to get outside assistance at an expense.
And you
justify. But for me, it's worth a lot. It's worth a lot to me in terms of.
But you also justify it enough that I feel like you are thinking harder about it than maybe you'll let on.
Oh no, there's no question that I have thought about it since pulling the trigger on leaving work, right? It's like, okay, well, how dynamic is my portfolio really going to be at this point? Like, what? Right. I'm not going to be making big moves, right? I'm going to be making allocation adjustments, tax advantage, choices.
Even if you did nothing, you'd be okay. But it's still, tapping out based on what you told me, pretty significant sum of money.
Yeah, sure. But I think for me, it's also about timing. I've still got some income to deal with this year, which is a good problem to have.
So you have a more complex situation maybe that would call for it. It's in some ways, it's similar to the runway that I kept.
Yeah, sure. I think that's a good analogy.
It may not be a sum of money that somebody else would look at and say, you're doing the right thing with that. But for me, it's what helped me make other decisions that got me to where I am today. And I think, I don't ever criticize you for that approach, because I can see the confidence that it's brought you. And I mean, I also listen to those guys, so I know how smart they are. And if I thought I could afford to work with them, I probably would, just for all the same reasons that you talk about, because you want someone who has just a different level of knowledge and someone with a fresh set of eyes to be looking at this in a way that you're not capable of. I'm sure they headed you off from mistakes you would have made otherwise. And
they did.
They're probably mistakes you could have recovered from in some aspects. And maybe you don't fully appreciate how much they've actually improved your portfolio. I mean, that's probably one thing that people don't talk a lot about, because it's a really hard thing to measure.
Yeah, no, I do think they have. And I mean, I have in certain years have objective data that they did, right? Performance of my portfolio versus a total market portfolio, or versus an 80-10-10 portfolio, pick your thing. I've actually done some of those comparisons.
Of course you have.
Of course I have, right? You know me. But yeah, I mean, it's we could do a show about that another time, but
okay.
I do still get a lot out of it. there's a big difference between comfortably financial independent and overwhelming abundance and, you know, superstar wealth. When you're at that level, you don't ever have to think about any purchase.
Yeah.
But even though we find ourselves in a very comfortable situation, right, and able to be financially independent, it's not like we're just, you know, got the money gun out and we're shooting it everywhere. You've still got to be fiscally responsible, especially if you are planning for the worst case that I am, which is living another 50 years, right? You have to be smart. You know,
it's funny,
yeah, you've got the freedom to spend, but that freedom has limits.